Welcome to another video from Cardboard East. My name's Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. Today we're going to talk about Tokyo Highway Rainbow City, an upcoming Kickstarter from itten Games. Now in this video I'm going to do an unboxing so you can see inside, and I'm also going to teach you how to set up and how to play and finish up with my initial impressions of the game. Now I don't have a Ticket to Ride size box, but Maglev Metro is the exact same size, so you can see that Tokyo Highway Rainbow City is a little bit smaller than your standard Ticket to Ride size box. Now before we open the box, I do want to mention that there is a score track on the back. So you can see the cards begin here and you have 5, 10, 15, and 20 points. You can see that here is your rule book. Now this one is in Japanese. The Kickstarter should come with English or multiple languages as well. Here is the, hey, you like this game, you could buy all these other games from itten, and these games are all pretty good. I've done reviews of most of these, and you can check those out on the channel. Now here is the mission board. These are various milestones that you can shoot for when you play the game, and on the back here are some setup guides so you don't have to always refer to the rule book, and this will be placed like on the table when you play the game. This is my storage solution for it. This is the sugar you don't eat. Here are the player things. I divided it up into the 4 players. There are 4 player colors. You can see that there are different color cards. You have the orange, you have the red, you have the green, and the blue, enough for 4 players, and you have enough of the columns here. And here I just do this for easier setup. These are the new road maps. The originals looked just like this, except this version comes with these little rubber ends here for better traction. And you get many of these. You also get some tweezers to help you with your cars. These are the new components for the Rainbow City. You have the airports, you have the little play stadium, and you'll get a closer look at these later. And then here are all the big buildings that you see here. If you notice on the bottom here, you'll have this little cutout here to show you how to place everything. So when you return everything into the game, you just simply follow this little puzzle here, and you'll be able to place everything in here. You don't really need to follow that, but I just think it's kind of neat that they added that to make it a little bit more compact for you. They didn't have to do that, but I'm glad they did. And if you see here for setup, you notice in a 2, 3, 4 player game, you'll need this many gray columns and this many yellow columns and this many roads. Now here with the cards, you'll see that there are 2 numbers, and that's because there are 2 ways to play this game. There's basic and mission. A mission is just playing with these missions, and we're gonna go ahead and set up for this version because I think this is the way that it was initially intended. Now in order to make sure that these fit in the box, these do come separate, but they're actually quite easy to put together. You simply just squeeze it into the little holes there, and then presto mesto, there you go. The sports arena will also have to be put together as well, and that's just placing these trees in here. Now I'm sure you could actually super glue these in here so you don't have to deal with this every single time, but it doesn't really bother me. It took like all of 3 seconds. Now that all players have their components, the gray columns, the yellow columns, all the cars, as well as the roads, you're next going to build a ramp. And you're going to take turns placing these here. Let's say the green will place here. You take 1 stick, 1 column, and 1 car, and you place it on the road. Simple as that. Next, players will take turns drafting the city objects and placing them somewhere on the table. So let's say green will take the rainbow and place it here. Maybe red will take this and place it here. Blue might take the Tokyo Tower and place it here. Now these buildings must be placed on one of these little ceiling places here first. So before these can be placed, one of these tiles has to be placed on the bottom. And then maybe green decides to place maybe this stadium over here. Blue will take the airport, place it here. Maybe red does this. Blue, green, red, blue, green, and then the last one will be placed here. Any way you want. Now granted, this is a little bit more compact because I'm squeezing everything here to fit on screen. Now doing a bird's eye view of Tokyo Highway doesn't do it justice. You definitely need something more of an angle like this to really capture the idea of the game. The player's turn will consist of 3 things: columns, roads, cars. The first thing you're going to do is add columns to extend your highway. Now there's one rule about columns, and that is that it must be 1 higher or 1 lower than the previous column. Since this column is 1, the next column must be 2. Over here in this example, we see this column has 2, so the next column can only have 1 or 3 columns set up. After you decided the height of your columns, then you can place your road as follows, connecting the 2 columns together. There are a few minute rules about placing roads. One of them is that you can't extend past the column and must land directly on the column. If you place this road on top of the previous road, that is fine. You can't create loops with your roads, and the highway must be one continuous road itself. You could twist and turn, but you can only have one continuous road. Now, on your previous column phase, you do have these yellow columns here, and these are turns or intersections. If you want to place a yellow column, the column can be of any height. It can even be the same height as the previous column, breaking the +1 -1 rule. What's interesting about yellow columns is that instead of being forced to only have one path, you could eventually extend 2 paths off the road. This will be very useful through the course of the game for a number of reasons, and I'll leave you to explore why. As stated before, the third part of your turn is cars. Column, roads, cars. You can add a car to your highway either by hand, or you could use these tweezers that came with the game and add a car to the road as follows. But there are some stipulations about adding cars, so you can't just add cars whenever you want. Here in this example, we can see that red has built this new road, and it is above blue. Keep in mind that there is an extra rule that the roads cannot touch each other, so a road can never touch another road. If your road that you recently built is the first road to be built above an opponent's road, then you could add 1 car. Conversely, as in this example, if your road is the first road to go underneath an opponent's road, then you can also place another car. In addition, in the very rare case where your road is the first road to go above or below an opponent's roads, and here you can see there are 2 roads, well then you can add 2 cars to the road that you just previously built. And this is a situation where those tweezers might come in handy. And that is essentially how you play Tokyo Highway Rainbow City. Your turn will always consist of those 3 columns, roads, and cars. Play will continue to player on the left, and you'll play until one player runs out of cars or all the players run out of components. Components being columns and roads. These are finite resources in the game, so once you spend them, you're kind of out of luck and, well, out of the game. Now, I do want to mention the mission board here because this is the newest addition to Tokyo Highway, and you'll see that there are these blue squares, green squares, and yellow squares. The blue squares essentially mean that they can happen as many times as possible in the game. Green squares can only happen once in the game, and then yellow happens just like the blue every single time. So let's go ahead and talk about all of these and what they mean. These are the points that happen. You get 1 point for every card that you place on a road. Every column that you place on one of these little things will also give you a point. Every time you loop a building, you'll get 1 point. Now this is the road not looping itself, but the road itself will go around a building. At the end of the game, every 5 columns you have left over in your supply will give you 1 point. Here is the traffic jam. If you have 3 road segments, all with cars, you'll have 2 points. If you get a car that goes through the rainbow, which is pretty easy to do, a little tricky, but easy to do, you'll get 2 points. If you have an exit, meaning that you have 1 column and 0 columns on between a road, then exiting into the airport will give you 2, exiting to the arena will give you 2, looping around the red Tokyo Tower, this bad boy here, and then looping around another building, well, this will make all these buildings worth 2 points. So if you loop around this first, every building you loop around will give you 2 points. So if you loop around this first, the next building you loop around will also give you 2 points instead of just 1. At the end of the game, whoever has the highest column will get 2 points. Notice here that this is yellow, so it's only gray columns that do that. This is perhaps my favorite part of the game, and that is once you place a car over an opponent's road, if that car matches your opponent's car, well then your opponent has to give you 1 column from their supply. I really love this rule. This always triggers, and it definitely adds a different element to the game. Now this is the latest version of Tokyo Highway. There have been several versions of this game. I'm going to give you a brief overview of them right now, so that way you'll go into the campaign with a little bit of knowledge, knowing what you're getting. Tokyo Highway first came out in 2016 as a two-player game. There weren't any buildings, there was just cars, roads, and columns. That's it. In 2017, there was an expansion that allowed up to 3 to 4 players. This expansion is extremely difficult to find. I don't think you'll ever be able to find it. 2018 is probably the most common version that you'll find of this game. This is the Asmodee version that allows for 4 players, included buildings and up to 4 players. Unfortunately, it did have a pretty nondescript cover, which led to a lot of confusion about what exactly this game is like. Thankfully, in the 2023 release of Rainbow City, there is a picture of the game on the back of the box. Now, in 2019, there was another expansion that allowed for different types of cars, so you're not regulated to just compact cars that all look uniform and the same. You also got a few more buildings, adding a little bit more variety to the game. In 2020, there was another 2+4 expansion, which allowed for 2 more players, bringing the player count up to 6, and even more buildings to crowd your city and make it a little bit more challenging as you build your highways. And now you're here in 2023 or 2024 for the Tokyo Highway Rainbow City version. So this is a standalone expansion. You don't have to have previously owned any of the other previous Tokyo Highways. If you just came into this Kickstarter and you bought this game, you're good to go and you can play straight out of the box. Now you can take all of these expansions and all of these components, and I'm pretty confident that you can fit it into the Asmodee box. You'll have to get rid of the insert, but I'm sure that you'll be able to fit everything in the box. So I don't think you have to worry about having weird, odd storage solutions here. Now, what is new in this version? Well, you have new cars. In the previous editions of Tokyo Highway, the cars were made out of wood. This one, they're made out of rubber, allowing them to grip onto the road just a little bit more, making also the highways a little bit more sturdy and the cars don't fall off as easily. You also have new roads. The roads come with that little rubber on the end, allowing them, just like the cars, to be a little bit more durable and your whole highway structure to be even sturdier than all the previous editions. You also have new colors. You have a little salt bay of color spread throughout the map. You have like the Tokyo building, which adds this nice spike of red to the center of the table. And you also have the rainbow and the airport and the stadium. Now that seems like a little thing, but they actually add a lot of character to the city. But probably the most important addition is the new rules. And by that, I mean the milestones that come. So now, instead of the buildings just being regular obstacles for you and your highway, there are scoring mechanisms that involve them and include them. Overall, I think you're going to see what I'm going to say here is that this is the best version of Tokyo Highway that I've ever seen or I've ever played. I think if you're interested in Tokyo Highway and you can only buy one, then hands down, Rainbow City is the one that you definitely want to get. If you already have Tokyo Highway, well then you have to look at these new components and decide if this is something that you really want. If you didn't like Tokyo Highway before, I don't think there's enough here to make you fall in love with it, but the roads, the columns are a lot sturdier than before, and there are new rules that allow for the game to be a little bit more dynamic and more interesting choices within the gameplay. Some things that I didn't like is that, well, there is a scoreboard on the back of the box. There are no markers for you to use for the scoreboard. Ideally, you're thinking, well, I'll just use cars. But if you're playing with the emissions expansion, which I definitely think you should, then you will be using all 10 cars and then you don't have a car to use, which is a little odd. I think I would have preferred just a nice score pad. We're a Post-it family. We have Post-its all over our home. So we just take score on our Post-it and just call it a day. Secondly, I love the mission board. I love that it stays on the table, propped up for everyone to see. I love that there's a nice little setup here. The only problem that I have with it is that it can be confusing sometimes that these can be scored multiple times and these can only be scored once. I would have liked maybe like a little lightning bolt here in the bottom left-hand corner and maybe like an infinity sign on the blue and the yellow, just to let players know what these are visually so they don't always have to ask, because people ask me quite a bit. The next negative I have is that for 4 players, you only have 9 roads, and that ends up being, well, a little bit not as much as I want. I think I would have preferred 10, maybe 11 roads. In the 2 to 3 player games, you have 15 to 12 roads respectively, and I think both of those experiences make it feel like a full game. For the 4 players at 9 roads and 7 cars, I kind of want a little bit more. But I understand they probably reduced that to make sure the gameplay lasts a certain time, as well as making sure you have enough roads in the box, because there aren't enough roads to make sure that 4 players have 10 or 12 roads. I'm just saying that I want more roads. Now, if you're new to Cardboard East, you probably don't know that I've been doing a top 100 board games from Japan list. Where does Tokyo Highway fall on that? It falls on number 29. Out of the hundreds of games from Japan that I've played over the years, this is one of the best ones out there. It's very unique and it just pops on the table. It'll turn heads. When you're at game night, people will look at you and be asking you, what game is that? Because there isn't a game like this in my entire collection. And all of these games here are pretty odd and unique with very interesting rules, but none of them plays like Tokyo Highway. Eric Martin from BGG once said that itten doesn't make games, they make interactive art. And if you look at its game catalog, you definitely feel that. They create this nice interactive art experience and gamify it, making it really memorable. And because this is 2024, every time you play Tokyo Highway, you're left with a very Instagrammable city that's sprawling out in front of you. Now, some people do complain that in the earlier editions of Tokyo Highway, the city always collapses, the freeways always collapse, and they just kind of call it the end of the game then and there. I did not have this problem with Rainbow City. That could be it for a number of reasons. It could be the new roads have the little rubbers on the end, which really make a big difference. Also, the cars themselves are rubber, which allows them to grip onto the roads just ever so slightly more. I didn't think it would make that big of a difference, but it makes a huge difference in the gameplay. Overall, Tokyo Highway is a strong recommendation from Cardboard East. I ranked it as number 29 and the definitive version of Tokyo Highway. I think that if you're new to this series, this is a perfect jumping on board moments, and I'm really curious to see what stretch goals and add-ons it will be adding to this campaign. Once again, my name's Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. I'll put some links to some videos here that I think you'll enjoy. See you there.